For the third year and counting, Richard Skipper has been celebrating the artists you love.
And what are some of the things that you really run out of time? And we've got to talk about your latest. I want to go back a little bit, first of all, and celebrate a true legend.
Richard Skipper is all about celebrating life, art, and his guest body of work.
And did you pursue performing opportunities while you were in high school?
Please join us while he showcases these diverse and talented individuals. Here's Richard Skipper.
And Kassira McKee. Hello, Kassira. Hello.
Happy Sunday, darling Richard.
It's Happy Sunday night, and this is the Let That Go show. Here we are. I've got my bookmark because I am immersed in your book. I've got lots of bookmarks in your, and as you know, this book is a book to get only in a hard form. It's not available in Kindle. Because, as you already know, mine is covered in underlying. I want to ask you, first of all, how has your week been? And I want to ask you, before we delve into tonight's topic, what did you let go of this week?
I'm notorious. You know, I'm an action taker, and I like for things to get done like 2 weeks ago. And as I stated in my book over and over and over again, we co-create together. We do not co-create independently. If we did, the world would have blown up a long time ago. So I'm patient. I had to let go of pushing, and I really had to exercise my patience muscle.
Well, this is great. Now, somebody sent me as a Christmas gift this great thing called Best Self. Have you seen this?
I heard of it.
It's these icebreaker cards. And I just pulled a card out and I'm going to ask you. And I think this is a great topic because we can start with this and then we're going to delve in to the topic du jour tonight. And because, yes, and this is a topic that you and I can both talk about. And the question is, what's something that you disagree with about the way that you were raised?
Oh, well, I write about it in my book. My fraternal grandparents were gods, gods and goddesses. They rescued the 4 of their 5 grandchildren constantly. The other side was very abusive and combative, and lots of alcoholics on my mother's side, lots of alcoholics, and abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse. So that, and I'm not shy to talk, you know me, Richard, I'll talk about anything. How are we supposed to learn from each other if we're not honest with each other? So honestly, that side of the family was pretty dysfunctional. My father's side of the family, so nice. Yet, if we wanted to talk about anything that might be contradictory to someone in the family, we weren't allowed to talk about it. So we couldn't, growing up, we could, on that side, we really couldn't express how we felt about people to each other. We were supposed to keep our mouth shut. My fabulous grandmother used to say, when I would voice my opinion, my grandmother would tell me I was ugly. That's ugly. I didn't raise you to be that ugly. I didn't raise you to be that ugly, but
you are obviously a Southern child.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm originally a Texan. Now
I'm a Southern boy, and I heard my grandmother say the same thing. That's ugly, Ricky.
That's ugly.
You don't say things like that.
I grew up thinking that I was actually ugly. So that's why I'm really a stickler about language. I'm a stickler about language and how we use it. We really have to watch the words that we say and how we speak, because in the book I write I have a section where I talk about language. When we speak, we're literally casting a spell. literally. Isn't it interesting that when you're writing, it's called spelling? Think about that for a minute.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Mhm.
Well, you know, it's
We're
very
testing.
interesting. You know, recently he went on to another realm. I think he's still very much with us, and that's Stephen Sondheim. And
Oh
Stephen
God,
Sondheim
I
was
did a Sondheim show. Yeah.
yes, all about words, and he did not waste words. If you listen to his lyrics and the way that he wrote words, and his words were all about power and how those words were used.
Mhm.
And be careful the words you use. Children will listen, and children are listening. And I think a lot, not to get political or anything, I think about what adults are saying these days in discourse and on television and on not only on the news, folks, but in movies, on television shows, on talk shows, on everything. And I think that children are picking up on this energy that we, and I say the collective we, are putting out into the world right now.
Are you kidding? Oh, are you kidding? I mean, it's. I don't mean to be morbid, but youth suicide is up. It's up. I mean, we thought when we were younger with the Vietnam War and, peace, race riots in protests, we were headed bad. I mean, look at today.
So
It's a lot for youth to take in and process. It's very difficult to process as a young person.
Now, Kassira is posted on the screen. If any of you have a question, if y'all have a question, y'all can.
Excuse me, you are from South Carolina.
I'm from South Carolina, and you're going to have me going back into my y'all again. But if y'all have a question, what you can do is you can actually instant message me if you're on Facebook. You know me, most of you know me, and if not, get to know me. Send me a private message on Facebook, and we will bring you on camera. We already have someone in the wings that we're going to bring on in a few minutes. Our dear friend Howard Tucker, who was here last week, and he's got a great question, and we're going to bring him on in a few minutes because we were talking a few days ago, and you were telling me about a friend of yours who just recently, I think by now, he's either in the seventh or eighth day.
Seventh day
of not smoking. And a lot of us, as we go into a new year, we start new resolutions. And the idea is that we're going to break habits. We're going to stop overeating. We're going to go to the gym. We're going to stop drinking. We're going to stop overeating. We're going to stop smoking. We're going to stop fill in the blank. And let's start with the first premise, resolutions. What are your thoughts when it comes to resolutions?
Well, think about what the term resolution means. It means resolving something. Maybe we don't want to resolve it that badly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's say we're addicted to love and we're in a relationship that's not that great, yet we don't really want to end that soul contract.
Mm-hmm.
We're probably not going to resolve it. And I don't like the word resolution. In fact, when I beat my addiction to cigarettes 21 years ago, I used the word, I explored not smoking. I explored the idea of not smoking. It's really, it's all fine, but here's the thing. Why do we have to wait until January 1st to decide we're going to change something? We can change anything any day.
Mm-hmm.
What's so important about the new year? We could have done it last year if we really, really desired to. Habits and addictions are two different things, yet habits can often result in addictions. And we have to look at, first we have to admit that we have an addiction of some sort. Then we have to be honest about it to the people around us. Hiding it is not helping.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of friends around me that really supported me in quitting smoking, or what I call beating the addiction.
I have a
Hang on a
question
minute.
regarding that. You bring up a very interesting thing. I read an article in today's local paper, about someone who's trying to stop drinking. And a lot of the local bars, if someone's trying to stop drinking, for example, and they go to a local bar and they're hanging out with their buddies and they're drinking a non-alcoholic beer.
Mhm.
Do you think that that's a good idea that they are in that environment to begin with? That they, even though they're
You know,
drinking a
that's a good que
non-alcoholic beer?
that's a good question. Let's say we're in a room full of people smoking weed and we don't smoke. We're not going to be on the same page. We're just not,
Mhm.
They're going to be on a whole other level, and it's difficult to keep up with the thought processes and the behavior and the language. I know people who I know many people who call themselves recovering alcoholics. I
Mhm.
prefer, I've always said, why don't you say you're recovered? You don't drink anymore. If you're in constant recovery, aren't you constantly an alcoholic? I know I'm going to get some mail about that one. I was one of my ex-fiancés was recovering alcoholic, but he'd been recovering for what, like 6 years, 7 years. So if someone, it's one thing to not crave alcohol and go out with friends and say, I'm not going to drink tonight. That's one thing.
Mhm.
However, if one is addicted to alcohol and one is in a room full of drinkers, they're not going to be on the same page. I'm not saying it's a good idea or a bad idea. It's not my place. They have to decide that for themselves, but I can't imagine that it would be a healthy environment for someone who it would just be I would think it would be too tempting personally.
Well,
If
it's very interesting. Years
I
ago,
had it.
I was involved in a relationship, long,
Mhm,
but I'm in a very happy relationship now, 32
mhm,
years. But
mhm,
before Danny, I was involved with someone who had a cocaine, and I reached the breaking point for me, and I found a number. There was an ad on the back page of the Village Voice, and I called the number, and it said, if you or someone you know has a problem with cocaine, call this number. It was
wow,
1-800-COCAINE. I called the number, and
wow.
the woman that I spoke with ended up
Mhm,
becoming my therapist. And after spilling my guts to her, she said something very telling to me. And she said, I'm going to tell you something that's going to come as a huge surprise to you. He
mhm,
doesn't have a problem with cocaine. You do. You can learn to live with it, or you can walk away from it. He's perfectly happy until the day that comes along where he's going to say, I don't want it in my life anymore. And it's
mhm.
interesting because you commented on this before the show started tonight.
Yes.
You know that I've just lost 55 pounds. And
Woohoo! Bravo!
but I was in denial about how much weight I was putting on
Mhm,
until I went away this summer, and I was having severe back problems. And not, but
mhm.
I'm seeing the photographs of myself putting the pounds on. And then, but I now I realize, uh, because of changing my behaviors, I was addicted to food.
Oh, yes.
But the food I was eating out of stress, I was addicted not only to the the food, but I was addicted to watching the news, watching
Mhm,
every night, and I would flip back and forth between the news channels that I wanted to watch, and
mhm,
I would go back and forth, and between those commercial breaks, I was stuffing the food in and then spending hours each day. But once I made up my mind that I was going to cut this stuff out of my life and that I was going to completely I don't think it's just a matter of saying I'm going to lose weight. That's not enough. There were all the other things that come with it. Why am I going to lose weight? What are the
mhm.
reasons why I'm going to lose weight?
Right.
And then changing my whole lifestyle to build around that.
Yeah, and on page 166 of my book, Let That Go.
Let
You
that
have
go.
it there. Yeah. I write about why we hold on to body weight or the lack of it. Some people are addicted to not eating.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about, here's the thing. Just about everything boils down to thoughts and feelings and how we process them. So it's thoughts and feelings. We're feely people. We're human beings. Our emotions are really good gauges for us. There's good stuff that our emotions do. They let us know if we are possibly in danger, or if something's not right, and then we need to look at it. We need to confront it. The other side of it is just being determined to hold on to something. It's determination. But I can tell you, as a smoker, and having been raised with a few alcoholics and been around alcoholics, that we often smoke over and drink over our feelings. It's so that we do not have to confront our feelings and process them. Yeah. Those that, those that come home from work and the first thing they do is make a cocktail. They're drinking over the day instead of processing what occurred and actively letting go of anything negative that happened in the day. If they're tired, instead of resting, they drink over it.
Was it easy for you
to smoke over it?
Was it easy for you to let go of the smoking?
That's a good question. I think easy or difficult is only if you say so. I have a chapter on only if you say so. I think if we tell each other it's easier to quit than I might have thought, or it's going to be easy. It's going to be easy to let this go. I think we train our brains. There are our brains, and we train our own brains. I have when I knew that it was time to quit cigarettes, I was in New York, and huffing and puffing up and down subway stairs. I was out of breath all the time, and the more I chanted to quit smoking, the more I smoked. And here's why: my brain was thinking about cigarettes, and I'd be chanting. I practice Nichiren Buddhism, and I'd be chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and I would be thinking about those cigarettes, and then I would ring the bell and take a break and smoke a damn cigarette. So what I realized is I didn't want to quit bad enough. My desire was just not strong enough for me to let them go. So I started I actually had done this before, but I started keeping a journal of what my brain said to me, the committee in our head, what the brain said that had me have to smoke. And it was usually a thought that triggered a feeling that I didn't want to look at and I didn't want to confront. So I'd smoke over it. Instead of looking at the feeling and examining the thought, I would just light up. So when I started chanting back then, before I changed my language, but I had a little card on my Buddhist altar that said, I'm chanting to want to quit. That was a different prayer. The desire to do something and or just to do something are two different things. And within, I'm going to say, a week and a half, 2 weeks, I sang for a big Buddhist meeting in our culture center in New York, in the city, on 15th Street. And my friend Denise Royal, who is watching today, hi girl.
Hi Denise.
My Alabama sister who lives in Arizona. We were roommates, and she sang with me. And afterwards we got a little lunch, and then I laid down to take a nap. I woke up so sick. As a smoker, all smokers will attest to this. We don't care if it's 20 below outside. We're going to go outside and smoke. We have a cold, we're going to smoke. We're going to smoke no matter what. I was so ill I couldn't smoke. And I knew that the universe was like, okay, you're not putting them down yet, so we're going to help you out. And I literally woke up so ill I couldn't smoke. And it was June 6th, 2000. I'll never forget it. And I was so sick. I was sick for 3 days, and Denise was so good to me. She brought, thank goodness there's lots of soup shops in New York. She would bring me soup every day and meds, and she was awesome. So
I had a
so
friend.
it was I had to take action in changing the prayer. And yeah, I smoked for many, many, many years. When I was on tour with Hello Dolly, we had a lot of smokers in the cast, and those were the days when you could smoke in a theater. They would let us go out into the stairwell, and we would just smoke our heads off in between scenes. And we smelled like ashtrays, but we were so used to it, that we always smelled like an ashtray. So we didn't even notice we were smelling up our costume,
Well, I was going to say,
I had smoking buddies in the cast. Yeah. And I smoked through, I don't know how many, I can't believe I sang as much as I did and performed as much as I did as a smoker. Unbelievable that I did that. But that's just one little addiction. Of course, alcohol, food is a big one. I used to be a member of Overeaters Anonymous. I was raised by eaters. My grandmother, my dear fraternal grandmother and grandparents, that took care of everybody, she loved with food. They made it through the Deep Depression in the 1920s in the Texas countryside, where they lived on, cheap hot dogs and beans and rice and cabbage and cornbread. That was what they lived on. And later on in life, her sister, my great aunt, refused to eat any of those things when she married a well-to-do man. And for the rest of her life, she would not eat any of those things. She said, I'm never going to eat a hot dog, rice and beans, or anything that we used to eat ever again in my life, because she was so sick of it. But, so to have food and eat a lot meant they were good. They were doing well. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was environmental.
Well, I want to bring Howard Tucker on because he has a great question. And I want to remind anyone, if you want to come on camera and ask either Kassira or myself a question, by all means, just send me a private message on Facebook, and I will send you the link that will bring you on camera. Mm-hmm. So here's our dear friend, Howard Tucker, devoted fan.
Hi, Kassira.
Waiting patiently in the wings. So welcome back, Howard.
Hey, Richard. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So,
okay, 2 quick comments, and then I'll get to the addiction question.
Okay.
First of all, a very quick salute to the 1000 show at the August Wilson at the New World stages of Jersey Boys.
Yay!
Jersey Boys is the show that 15 years ago gave me a second career as a writer, a blogger, and now a podcaster with Gia and David. So salute to them. Secondly, thank you for the advice last week of lowering expectations. And I'm going to give you one example.
How's that going?
It's something. It's going better than I would think it would had I not gotten advice from you. This week, a theater person, not you, Richard, was interviewed and commented or thanked several people, but not me. And I really had introduced those people. It wasn't a major issue. I ignored it. I didn't come back, and I didn't say, why didn't you include me? And we've communicated since, and as if we knew nothing about it. I'm sure it was unintentional. And yes, when you see the Oscars or the Emmys, people always forget to acknowledge somebody.
Well, I mean,
people forget to,
Howard.
People forget to acknowledge their spouses, Howard. So, don't feel bad. Let that go. Yeah.
There you go. All right.
You can spend an entire lifetime in this business to get overlooked in the in memoriam section at the Oscars. So think about that for a moment.
Yes. Okay, here is my addiction question, Kassira. And in fact, I'll end it with something funny that happened Thursday night, almost divine intervention, knowing we were going to discuss this today. Let me give you my background. I have never in my life, unless it's unintentional, had an alcoholic beverage. And the reason is that and I can't even remember how young I was, maybe 6 or 7, and I adored my father, and the nicest, most humble gentleman you could meet. But from the very beginning, he told me that my grandfather, who I knew, he passed away when I was 13, that my grandfather had a severe alcohol problem. And in fact, as young as I can remember, when we had visited him, I don't remember anything violent. My father used to tell me how my grandfather would chase him around with a belt. And knowing my father, I couldn't imagine that. And even when we visited him, and by that time my father was in his 40s, he was sort of fearful of my grandfather, who was a very gruff man, and I could smell the liquor. I don't even remember, 12, 13. So my father never took a drink in his life, and I didn't either. My mother certainly was by no means an alcoholic. She enjoyed a drink, and we had it in the house, but I was petrified that I would end up the way my grandfather did. And in fact, it wasn't really a problem, even in college, because I guess, a silver lining, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes when I was 18 years old. Wow. It's controlled, and I've treated it. But whenever I would be with somebody, I would use that as a reason that I couldn't drink, and I never really had a problem with that. Now, going forward, I'm really afraid to touch alcohol. I'm just afraid. Now, here's what happened on Thursday night. Thursday night, some friends and I went to see Ben Bogan in concert at the Green Room. And it's sort of funny in retrospect. It wasn't funny at the time. The waiter spilled wine on me, unintentionally, but he spilled some wine. And I was, oh my God, I can smell the wine. I can smell the wine. Oh, and yeah. There was, how close the tables are. There was a woman at the next table. I mean, people at my table thought it was sort of humorous. But the person at the next table took out some perfume, a woman, and she said, "Can I give you some of this, a Lancôme or whatever it was?" And she did. She sprayed it on me, and I didn't smell the wine. But anyway, my bottom line is, could it be hereditary? At this age, believe me, I'm not gonna start and test it. But I'm so fearful of that because of my history, or my grandfather's history.
Well, how addiction to the perfume?
What's that, Richard?
I get addiction to the perfume.
I can only imagine with the smelling like wine and perfume, you smell like you're all rich.
May I add one other comment to that? Even after my grandfather died, when I would get together with my father's cousins, this would always be a subject of discussion where one would say to the other, "Oh my God, do you remember that Uncle Max would come over when Aunt Sadie wouldn't let him have any more to drink, and he'd go from house to house wanting more liquor?" So that's really my question, Kassira.
Wow.
What's your question?
My question is it hereditary? I mean, I'm not going to get that addiction at this age, but my father was scared to death of it. I am scared to death to even smell alcohol because of
that's actually
grandfather's.
Good. Yeah. So Howard, addictions have lots of layers. There are two basic causes for addictions: environmental and hereditary, which means genes. We do have genes in our brains that can predecess some addictions kicking in. That is absolutely true. However, it depends on how an individual processes their environment. There are people with alcoholic parents that become alcoholics themselves. There are kids that are raised with parents that smoke weed or do drugs in front of their kids, and their kids start doing it when they're teenagers, and they end up being addicts like their parents if the parents are addicts. It's how we choose to process it, and when we're young, it depends on whether we had a good experience or a negative experience. It's whether or not the experiences are positive or negative. If they're positive, and kids are raised with addictions, a lot of kids will just jump right in and end up being addicts themselves. Mm-hmm. Especially the big one, food. A big one is food. A big one is if parents smoke and they let their kids start smoking when they're young, kids are going to be addicted to cigarettes. They're going to smoke most of their lives unless they choose to beat the addiction and unless they choose to put their health first. And, I think that there's a lot of loyalty around family addictions. Loyalty is a deep-rooted thing. And we often are loyal to abusive relatives, even though they abused us, we're still loyal to them because that's where we were trained. We're loyal to overeating. We're loyal to the cigarette smoking. We're loyal to the drinking. So scientifically speaking, hereditary addictions, which are genes, attest for 40 to 60% of our addictions. Mm-hmm. That's a lot. That's a pretty big percentage. And I'm not a brain scientist or surgeon, so I can't go into all of the details. I have studied this. When we're adults, we get to decide and choose something different. When we're adults, we're legal adults. We can do what we want. Denise says, yes, food is so hard, especially because we need it for life. Yes, that's another aspect of it. There are things we become addicted to because we ingest them to live. Food is a number one, I would say. Food is number one. Yet there are families and groups of friends and people that don't support people in beating addictions. They want them to be comrades in their addictions. Mm-hmm. That's a tough one. And you guess what? If you really, really, really desire and require to kick something, you may have to distance yourself. You may have to find a different group of friends. You may have to hang out, actively hang out with healthier people. I quote Dr. Drupinski at the top of the chapter on habits and addictions in my book, which is on page 136. And he is a notorious counselor and therapist for addicts. So again, addictions and habits and addictions just have so many juicy layers. And the first step is to admit we have an addiction. I did that with cigarettes. At one time I did it with food. Now I eat healthier, and I just started, I'm working back up to running again. I used to be a runner. So, we're in the third dimension. We're not up there in the angelic realm. We have to take action as human beings in the third dimension. It's not just about thinking things and saying things. It's about doing.
Well,
does that help you?
It does. Thank you. If I can make a comment on food, I think Richard knows a little bit of my history. I don't know that I really had an addiction, but and in a way, it could have been hereditary. My mother was very heavy. It's now 21 years ago that I had gastric bypass surgery. And I just couldn't control it. And knock wood, I'm down, maybe about 140 pounds over what I was. I'm still heavy. But 4 years ago, I had a stroke. And, I went in for the bypass at about 360 pounds. I was still in the area of about 260. And they cautioned me very carefully about watching what I ate and my habits. And I did join Weight Watchers, and I did do a lot of their 0-point foods. I lived on shrimp and spinach. And you do acquire a taste for that, Kassira. Honestly, I didn't like it at first, but it's an acquired taste. And now I'm still fighting. Weight Watchers still thinks I'm 50 pounds overweight, but I'm no longer fighting at 360. I'm fighting at 210. So whether I had an addiction or not, I don't know. I would think I was eating a lot of the wrong foods, though. And, I went out a lot. I was an auditor for 20 years, and I was all over the world, and we had big dinners and et cetera. As far as cigarettes, my mother was a smoker. I don't remember that heavy a smoker, but my mother died of lung cancer at 49. So that sort of gave me a little bit of a lesson, I guess. And then my father would sort of, not really a joke, saying, I used to smoke, but I gave it up. I never remember him smoking, but his sister, who was a heavy smoker, knockwood, she died at 87, but she would always joke with him, Harry, would you stop saying you quit smoking? You never were a smoker to begin with. And, it was sort of a joke. So thank you. A little bit off topic there, but
No, right. You know, and let's talk about environmental, because that's a big one. You know, when I was very young, I'm going to say about 7, 8. I'm sorry, I take that back. My mother and my stepfather, who are both gone now, used to give me booze to get me to go to sleep.
Really? Wow.
Yes, they used to give me Mogan David and something else to
All
get
right.
me to go to sleep. Yeah.
Oh, sure, great.
And my step grandfather, you know, I think that if we're going to help each other, and Richard and I are going to encourage each other, we have to be perfectly honest about our experiences. And that's why I'm telling you these things. I'm not repeating these old stories to perpetuate the negativity. It's my intention that someone will learn something from our stories. My step grandfather, who was a lovely, lovely man, my stepfather was absolutely an alcoholic and a pill popper. His father, I did not know until in later years that my step grandfather was a raging alcoholic. I had no idea. I had no idea until I was grown and he was gone. I do remember that he had a barrel of booze in the backyard. A big, like, pirate barrel of bourbon or whiskey or something. And I thought it was water. And one day I went out there and I tasted it and I thought I was going to pass out. It was so nasty, but that's where he kept his booze. And, you know, I had no idea. And I thought, oh, okay, this is where my stepfather got it. Okay, I got it. Okay. And my step grandfather was a smoker. My stepfather was a smoker, you know, environmental. I do drink on occasion. I'm not half as much as I used to when I was on the road and performing every night, and, you know, performing in clubs and stuff. Man, we drank a lot. Everybody drank, you know. We would say, you know, I would save it for the last break before the last set and just drink up a storm.
Kassira, do you have another device open, because we're getting feedback?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now we're getting it louder. Thank you.
That's really weird.
I have my iPhone on. Could that be it?
Yes.
That's what it's getting. So Howard, I'm going to take you off so that you. Thank you for being here, and I want to but keep listening, because I want to talk about this as well. So thank you, Howard, for being here tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. But you know, I want to talk about this as well, because I grew up. My father was an alcoholic, and I grew up with my father for the first 15 years of my life. Was a weekend drinker. He and weekends in my household were very volatile, to put it mildly.
Okay.
We never knew what shape he was going to be in. He was either in a very bad mood or he would be passed out. I hope my mom is not upset about my telling these stories, but that was the life that I lived for the first 15 years of my life. By the time I was 15, those weekends ended up not just being weekends, but seeping into the rest of the week.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a full-time experience. I don't drink at all, and I never have. But it was the experiences that I was seeing around me all the time that said, I don't want any part of that. As a result of that, when I have been out with my friends my own age, I didn't really hang out with friends my own age when I was in high school. And I didn't because I was afraid, I was ashamed. I carried a lot of shame around. I was ashamed. I didn't want my friends at school to know what I lived with at home. I didn't want them to see what I was going through. So friends never came over. I never had friends over at my house. I never, really went to parties or anything for all those reasons. So when I was older, and my social life did not begin until I moved to New York. And then when I even going out with my friends my own age, and that began when I started my theater life in New York, going out with the cast after the show and everything. To this day, if I am with someone who crosses the line in drinking, and you know it when it happens, I'm very uncomfortable because I never know when that snapping point is going to happen. And it makes me uncomfortable. It makes me uncomfortable when I see someone who's been drinking. And I worked as a singing waiter at Marie's Crisis in Manhattan. I saw people when I had to tell someone, I'm sorry, but I don't think I should serve you another drink. I would see people get belligerent, which would bring up the same things that I experienced as a child. You see those things and you live in those things. And I know, and you talk about this in your book, which I love. And these are things that you and I have talked about. Two things that you really talk about, and everyone get the book, boomerangs and quicksand. The boomerangs, those things that we keep boomeranging back into our lives again. And until I met my current husband, I was doing a lot of boomeranging with the people that I would have relationships with, and the people that I was bringing into my life. And then the quicksand as well, the situations that I would find myself in. As I'm reading your book, finding that so many people are doing these things over and over and over again. And those are things that we have to get beyond in order to get beyond the addictions that we have.
And let's look at the deeper meaning and the deeper causes of how people become addicts. We're human beings. We tend to medicate with lots of things. Alcohol is a great medication for some people. But here's the thing: we live in a universe of we follow the law of impermanence. It's Buddhism. There's a law of impermanence, which means nothing ever stays the same. I don't really like the words never, ever, or always. Yet there are exceptions. It is a true fact that things are in constant flux of change in our universe. Things do not stay the same. Things get old, things decay. People change, things change, circumstances change. So what I would like for anyone out there who is caught who knows that they're addicted to something, or maybe more than one thing, to realize that you're only appeasing yourself for a moment. And that's how you become that's how I became a chain smoker. I'd smoke over my feelings and put the cigarette out. The euphoria would wear off, and I'd light another cigarette. That's the simple, explanation of it. I can say this now, but my father, who's a therapist, and I had discussed my mother's behavior. They divorced when I was very, very young, so he did not have to live with that behavior for years and years and years, thank goodness. But we discussed the fact that, this is, of course, this is in the late 50s, early 60s, when the psychological world and the psychiatric world was not as evolved as it is now. And it was normal for people to drink too much to medicate themselves. A lot of people did that back then. And we realized that my mother was more than likely bipolar and manic depressive. And she was medicating over the illness. And it's because there was there used to be a stigma around therapy and psychiatrists. If you went to one of those people, there was something really wrong with you and they were going to kill you.
And you didn't talk.
Nowadays, it's I don't like the term normal, because what's normal now?
Exactly.
Today? There's no such thing. We are who we are, and we do what we do. And so medicating over things is a really, really, really big part of addiction.
Well, Kassira, one of my favorite TV shows, I was watching it last night, Bewitched. Every time the Tates come over, the first thing they do is they go to the cocktail making drinks. during and it's such a part of that lifestyle, and it was celebrated every show on television. If you brought people over, the first thing they do is they have cocktails. It was a cocktail hour. There was a happy hour. There were all those things that were happening. I've got a couple of questions I want to ask you, if you don't mind going there, about your father and your home life. And if I cross any lines, you can stop me. With your father and your mother, and these are things that I'm always interested in. Did your mother change over the course of their marriage?
No.
Or,
oh no, they were not. They were only married for 3 years. He got out quick. You know, they divorced when I was 2.
But let me just finish the question. Did your mother change, or was your mother always the same person that your father married? If that makes sense to you, the question I'm asking.
Well, I think, you know, back then people didn't live together. Oh, that's not true. In the old days, in the country, people would live together. This is an interesting question. Thank you. I'm going to give me a moment. I'm getting to a point. In the old days in the country, where there were no preachers or churches, couples would move in together and wait for the preacher to make his rounds. In the country, preachers would make their rounds through a region, and he would knock on every door and do christenings and do baptisms and marry people. So, but however, when we were kids, you didn't have to do that anymore. You know, you and I both grew up in cities. Or larger towns. So I'm from Dallas. So, you know, but however, people did not live together before they got married. So I really don't think, I shouldn't speak for my dad. My dad's wonderful. Yet I'm going to venture out on a limb, and I'm assuming that he had not lived with her yet. So when they got married and lived together is how he really found out what was going on there, because they were with each other 24/7.
Now, Howard has another question. Do you believe in 12-step programs? What are your thoughts about 12-step programs?
You know, they've become 12-step used to be really strict. There is an Overeaters Anonymous is much like Alcoholics Anonymous. There are steps you follow. However, they're not. In Overeaters Anonymous, we don't follow exactly the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. In Alcoholics Anonymous, there is retribution. There are apologies. There's making good with people on the list. And Overeaters Anonymous, we don't do that. So it depends on the addiction. For alcoholics, absolutely. Cocaine Anonymous, all of the illegal drug anonymous programs. Yeah, it's a good idea, because you know why? Addicts need structure. Addicts require structure to get clean and stay that way. They've got to have structure, because addictions, there is no structure. Addiction is a free for all. So I think the discipline of the structure and the discipline of 12-step is really important for certain addictions. Yeah.
I was reading something in your book today, and and I'm going to point this out. You were talking about physical relocation, and I think this applies to this as well. You say what we desire when we desire to relocate to a job, business, or residence, there are 5 basic keys to order, and they are liberation, communication, excavation, elimination, and imagination. And I think that applies to this as well. It's all the things that we need. Like, for example, if somebody says, I want to lose weight. Well, if I say that I want to lose weight and I lose a pound, well, I've lost weight, but does that mean that I've achieved my goal? Well, somewhat, I've achieved my goal. But what are my reasons for losing weight? Am I losing weight because I want to be the best looking guy on the beach, or I want to fit into or I want to fit into a new suit, or I want to do it for health reasons? And it's all a matter of embracing, all the reasons why you want to desire. I'm learning, Kassira. The desire to incorporate these changes in our lives. And again, letting go. What were the reasons why I was stuffing the food down my mouth every night? And like there was no tomorrow. And one of the other things that I was reading in your wonderful book today is that this is it, this moment. This is it. Yesterday doesn't exist. Tomorrow doesn't exist. This morning doesn't exist. The next hour doesn't exist. This is it. It's what we do with this moment that really, truly matters.
Well, the present moment is the only moment that exists.
Exactly.
Past and future, we haven't experienced it yet. The past was a minute ago. So what we do, what we decide, what we say, what we feel, what we think in the present moment, it reverberates into the past and the future. I do have a chapter called 5 Reasons We Hold On.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons we hold on is things are habits and we become addicted to them. We are I know people that are addicted to particular feelings.
Well, it's like the old expression, when you can substitute anything for this, how do you eat a hippopotamus? One bite at a time. Or for the vegetarians and the vegans, how do you eat a watermelon? One bite at a time.
One slice at a time.
Yes,
yeah.
One slice at a time. And I think that a lot of people, again, I mean, here we are going now into our second week, that so many people feel that they bite off so much. I'm going to do this, as we go into this new year. And then by the 3rd or 4th day, when they slipped a little, then they feel like they're a failure. Because
that's why I use the term exploring something, not I'm going to do this no matter what. And then when we don't, we're so disappointed in ourselves. And then we punish ourselves by going back to whatever it was we were doing that we said we desired to kick. Oh, well, I screwed up, so I might as well go back and do it again. It takes time. Here in the 3rd dimension, things take time.
I interviewed someone earlier this past year, and he said he treats his day as if it was a page out of the TV guide.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're watching TV shows, you watch a show, let's say from 8 o'clock to 8:30, and then it ends at 8:30. Then what happens at 8:30? A whole new show begins. It's a whole new episode. It's a whole new set of characters. It's a whole new set of circumstances. It's a whole new reality. And he said that's how he divides his day. This hour is this hour. And in this hour, this is the reality that I'm going to create. In this hour, I'm going to go to the gym. And in this hour, I'm going to work on this. And then when that hour is over, this next hour is a completely different show. And I just think it's just an amazing way. And it's a creative way of creating his day. But if it works for him, it works for him. And I think we all have the ability of creating what we desire our days, our months, our weeks, our years to be. And just as you and I have created with this show.
Well, planning and discipline. Yeah, planning and discipline. The question is, how dedicated are we to ourselves? We often dedicate ourselves so much to other people and other responsibilities and commitments we've made that involve other people. What about our commitments to ourselves? What happened to that? I spent years working for other people in the corporate world, dedicating most of my working hours or waking hours to someone else's success. It's exhausting, right?
Most of us do that.
Many of us have done that. uh, unless we really, 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 really love what we do for an income, how we bring in abundance. And so it doesn't feel like a job as much as it does our life's work. You know,
Okay, well,
but our commitment to ourselves is very important. How committed are we to ourselves?
well, Kassira, not only am I committed to me, but I'm committed to you. I
Oh,
want you
you're
to
so
know that.
sweet.
And we are at the end of our show again. I can't, this hour just flies. I have so much fun. We began the hour by talking about what we let go of this week. And I want to ask you, as
Yep.
we, first of all, and then I'm going to say a few closing remarks, and then I'm going to give you the final word tonight. As we wrap up this evening, what would you desire to let go of over the next 7 days?
Oh gosh. I I think it's always good to let go of expectations of others.
Okay, that's great.
It's really good to do that. We might desire someone to do something, yet we really absolutely, unless we're, kidnap someone, tie them up and put them in the trunk of our car.
Are you
We
listening,
cannot
Howard? Howard, listen, Howard. I will tell
Oh, has
you.
Howard kidnapped some? Has Howard tied somebody up and put them in the trunk of his car?
No. About
Oh, okay.
when I years ago I won the Mac Award, and I went up, and your mind is running a mile a minute. You've only got a few seconds to thank everybody.
Mhm.
And I thanked everyone but my musical director, David Mayoko. And I'm mentioning him now because the moment I stepped into the wings, my heart stopped. And I went, oh my God, David Mayoko.
Oh,
And I literally, they were already on to the next announcement for the next award. I literally wanted to step back on that stage and acknowledge him. And later in the evening, he won his award for musical direction of our show. And of course, he acknowledges that. And I shouted from my seat, I love you so much. I felt so awful. So don't take it personally, because everyone's brain is running a mile a minute. And even now, there are 1,000 people that I could thank right now, and I'm going to leave somebody off. So I want to end this evening by letting everyone out there know that Kassira and I will be back here next Sunday night at 5 o'clock. We are not doing this just to talk amongst ourselves. We're doing this for you.
for you.
So, do it, so send us your ideas, your comments, your suggestions, your questions. Let us know what you think of the show. This is on richardskippercelebrates.com. Click on that little button that says join in the celebration. Tell your friends about the show. Let's grow this movement. Kassira and I are committed that next January 2nd and beyond, every January 2nd is going to be Let That Go Day. So help us in this movement to make that a reality. I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. When tonight's show is over, this is what I desire that each and every person that hears this show will do. Go to your Facebook friends list, and the 9th name in your friends list, I want you to reach out with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, but a phone call. And let that person know what they mean in your life. Now, if the 9th person that pops up is someone and you go, who is that person? I don't remember that person. I've never met that person. Then you know what I have to say? Let that person go. You don't know who they are anyway. So, yes, it's all about holding on. So I love you all. I'm going to give Kassira the final word. We will see you back here next Sunday night at 5 o'clock Eastern time, and that's 2 o'clock Pacific time. Kassira, I'm letting go. It's your turn.
Thank you, darling. So one of the subjects that we did not broach during this conversation is addicted to being right. It's a huge addiction on our planet. So many people are addicted to being right. I've known many of them myself. I'm going to read a couple little excerpts from my book, Let That Go. It's in a chapter called 5 Reasons We Hold On. The second reason is called habits and addictions. We hold on to people, places, and things that are not good for us, that are negative, sometimes toxic, because it's a habit and we're addicted to it. The longer we hold on to the habits of thinking, feeling, speaking, and behaving negatively, which could be an addiction, they become addictions. We also become addicted to being right about them and to the negative stories we tell about them. We also become addicted to being in control. This occurs when we falsely believe we can control one another. The truth is we can only control ourselves. Therefore, our addiction to control is a waste of time and also destroys relationships. These negative habits and addictions consume us until they become a way of life and create a negative way of being, which boomerangs more negatively back to us. Righteousness, trying to control others, the stories we tell, and the negativity that's perpetuated makes us fall into the quicksand. However, if we can develop these kinds of negative habits and addictions, we can develop other more positive habits like honoring the free will and desires of others and letting go of the urge to interfere with them. When we honor another human's journey and free will and simultaneously focus on our own, we sever the chains of addiction and control in order to move forward in this life with joy, freedom, well-being, and peace of mind.
Wow.
The end. Today.
We'll see you next week. I love you, Kassira.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay, we'll see you next
And
week.
and also you guys can you can message me on Facebook, Kassira McKee, if you have any questions or any comments. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I'll see you next week. Okay.
All right, darling.
Love
Love
you.
to all.
Okay, bye.
Bye.